All right, let's get right into today's explainer. We're zeroing in on a fascinating breakdown by Mastersense by Faraday. And honestly, it completely flips the script on how we approach modern household security. We're doing a critical analysis of a hidden vulnerability that, well, most people completely miss. We spend so much time, energy, and cash locking down the perimeter, but we are totally ignoring a massive, gaping blind spot right inside our own walls. Okay, let's dive into this. Take a quick second and actually think about this. What is the biggest security gap in your home right now? If you're like most people, your brain instantly jumps to hardware, right? You're probably picturing that side window that's a little tricky to latch, or maybe a dark patch in the backyard where the motion sensor just doesn't quite reach. Or maybe you're thinking, man, I really need to upgrade that deadbolt on the back door. We are just so hardwired to default to physical architecture when we think about safety. And because of that mindset, we end up building absolute fortresses. We pour insane amounts of money into high, fortified gates. We bring in highly trained guard dogs. We wire up high-definition CCTV cameras to cover literally every single angle. We string up electric fences, we pay for elite armed response subscriptions, and we ship in these wildly expensive high-tech smart locks. We just keep stacking these layers of physical defense, one on top of the other, rapidly building this imposing perimeter to keep the bad guys out. And it looks totally impenetrable, doesn't it? But here is where we need to just hit the brakes and slow down for a second, because all of that heavy, ultra-expensive equipment, it might literally just be creating an illusion of security. The source material highlights this chilling reality. We just automatically assume that once a compound looks secure on the outside, the family inside is protected. But despite shelling out a fortune on those iron gates and electric fences, your setup might still be incredibly vulnerable. You can build the highest walls in the city, but if the threat isn't actually coming from the outside, those walls are completely useless. And that brings us to the human element, the insiders. The absolute most critical security node in your home probably isn't a camera or a smart fence. It's the people. It's the guard standing right there at the gate. It's the chef who preps your family's meals, the driver who maps out your exact daily movements. It's the cleaner who goes into your most private rooms, and the nanny who is trusted with your kids when absolutely no one else is watching. These individuals hold immense, undeniable power. Why? Simply because they know your routines, they know your blind spots, and they have the keys to your most private spaces. Now, what's really interesting about this next slide is how the source material breaks down the sheer financial stakes involved here. They use a very specific, real-world scenario from Nigeria to paint this picture. Imagine a homeowner who drops 80 million naira on an empty plot of land. Then they spend 350 million naira building this stunning, state-of-the-art mansion. And on top of that, they park 800 million naira worth of imported luxury cars right there in the driveway. So you add all that up, and in one single residential compound, you are looking at well over 1.2 billion naira in highly visible, highly desirable assets. It is just a staggering display of wealth. But then we hit this absolutely jarring juxtaposition: 70,000 naira. The actual human being tasked with guarding that immense 1.2 billion naira fortune, they might be taking home just 70,000 naira a month. To put that into perspective, that is the current national minimum wage level in Nigeria. The person we literally expect to protect a billionaire's playground is being paid a wage that barely covers the absolute basic necessities to survive. When you really think about it, the contrast is mind-blowing. Let's anchor this data in reality for a second. Picture that exact scenario we just broke down. You've got the sprawling mansion, the gleaming luxury vehicles, the perfect cobblestones, 1.2 billion in shiny assets. And right outside the gate, sitting on a cheap plastic chair with a thermos and a rifle, is the 70,000 naira protector. This isn't some abstract economic theory. This is a physical reality in so many upscale neighborhoods right now. All of that wealth is being completely insulated by someone who is entirely excluded from it. And that creates a wildly dangerous paradox. Think about it. On one side of the equation, we're expecting this person to effectively stand as a human shield between ruthless criminals and a family's peace of mind. We're asking them to put their own life on the line, to stand between danger and extreme wealth, between total strangers and our own children. But on the other side of the equation, they are barely surviving. We are demanding maximum physical and moral commitment while providing the absolute bare minimum in financial support. So the crucial point is, well, it really boils down to one incredibly powerful thesis from the source material. We place extraordinary trust in people we often treat as ordinary expenses. Just let that sink in for a moment. It so perfectly hits the nail on the head regarding the fundamental flaw in modern security logic. We treat the people who literally hold the keys to our lives the exact same way we treat a pesky monthly utility bill. We look at them as just another line item on a budget to be minimized, instead of treating them like the absolutely critical pillars of our family's safety that they actually are. And we need to be very clear and objective about this. This gap between trust and treatment, it isn't just an issue of fairness. It is a severe, highly quantifiable security risk. It's what's known as the vulnerability of access. Look, when you pay someone minimum wage but grant them maximum access to your life, you are basically creating a massive security loophole. These seemingly ordinary household roles carry extraordinary access. And if someone is desperate or resentful or even just totally unmotivated, that access can be so easily exploited by outside threats. And this brilliantly illustrates the whole dynamic. Think of it like a scale. On one side, we pile on this incredibly heavy weight of trust, the literal keys to the house, the safety of the kids, intimate knowledge of the home. But on the other side is the treatment, the wages, the respect, the working conditions. When we demand high trust but provide terrible treatment, the scale violently tips. We create a super dangerous imbalance. Because at the end of the day, a poorly treated insider is the absolute easiest vulnerability for an outsider to leverage. To fix this, we really have to undergo a total paradigm shift. We have got to stop seeing home defense strictly as a bunch of fancy equipment. I mean, cameras can be blinded, electric fences get bypassed, locks get picked. True security is actually a relationship. The trusted people inside your home are an active, living, breathing part of your security system. You could have the absolute best alarm system in the world, but if the person who knows the PIN code doesn't feel valued or respected by you, your system's already broken. So, how do we rebuild this? The source material offers a really fantastic new framework. True safety isn't built on a foundation of concrete or steel anymore. It's built on the 3 pillars of human interaction. Because honestly, the strongest, thickest gate in the world is only as secure as the person holding the key. You absolutely have to build and maintain these 3 pillars equally if you want a genuinely secure environment for your family. Let's move to the breakdown and see how this actually translates into actionable steps. Number 1 is access. We have to acknowledge that access equals power. Anyone with access to your home holds power over your safety, period. Number 2 is trust. Yes, you have to place trust in these roles, but remember, trust has to be earned and, more importantly, maintained. And number 3, and this is the absolute most critical piece, is treatment. Because access is power, how we recruit, how we pay, how we supervise, and how we respect our staff, that is actually the most critical part of our home defense strategy. Good treatment literally is good security. Which leaves us with this final, absolutely vital question to ask ourselves. You locked the gate, you set the alarm, you turned on the cameras, but did you secure the people inside? Have you actually invested in the human element of your fortress? I really want you to let that linger. Take a hard look and rethink your entire approach to home security. Thank you so much for hanging out with me for this explainer. Keep learning, keep asking the tough questions, and I will catch you in the next one.
If this message opened your mind, don't keep it to yourself. Subscribe to MasterSense by Faraday, hit the like button, and share this video with someone who needs wisdom, clarity, and inspiration today. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss our next powerful lesson. Remember, knowledge becomes power only when you act on it. See you in the next video.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Welcome to today's explainer, where we're going to fundamentally redefine how we look at home security. You know, when we think about keeping our homes safe, our minds almost immediately jump to the physical barriers, right? Things we can see and touch. But what if the absolute biggest vulnerability isn't the height of your perimeter wall or the industrial strength of your gate? Today, we are shining a massive spotlight on a critical blind spot, the people risk that we so often just completely ignore.
So I want you to ask yourself a seriously important question right off the bat. Is your home actually secure, or is it just heavily locked? Because honestly, that's a subtle but massive difference. We literally spend thousands on high walls, electric fences, state-of-the-art camera systems, kind of wrapping ourselves in this super expensive cocoon of physical barriers. But I'm going to challenge your sense of safety for a second here. Are those pricey hardware upgrades actually enough to truly protect you, your family, and your assets?
Think about it like this. On one side, you've got your hardware, your locks, your cameras, your fences. But on the other side, you have humans. And with humans comes loyalty, discretion, character, emotional stability, and motivation. The crucial takeaway here is that relying purely on hardware, it creates a really dangerous illusion of total safety. I mean, a camera can only record an event after it happens. It's not going to jump down and stop it. And sure, a gate can be heavily locked, absolutely, but a person holding the key can always be persuaded. You just can't rely solely on hardware without factoring in the totally overlooked, absolutely essential element of human character.
Which brings us to Section 1, the human security blind spot, in rethinking the fortress.
There's this saying, a fence can delay an intruder, but an insider can make intrusion unnecessary. And wow, that just completely shatters the hardware myth we were just talking about, doesn't it? Just think about it practically for a second. What good is a 10-foot electric fence and a reinforced steel door if the guy operating the gate just flips off the alarm and opens the door for an intruder? External threats are virtually meaningless if somebody on the inside decides to just pave the way for them.
Moving right along to Section 2, why access is power and why proximity matters.
In the world of security, distance is basically a metric of safety. The closer someone gets to your private life, the more powerful and highly sensitive their role inherently becomes. And this whole dynamic brilliantly illustrates the fact that your domestic staff, they aren't just casual workers passing through. They are a load-bearing, fundamental part of your household's risk architecture. Day in and day out, they are literally mapping out and tracking every single movement within your home's most private spaces. They know exactly where you sleep, where the emergency keys are stashed, the exact physical routes your kids take through the house. Basically, they're already inside the fortress.
Let's really break down the kind of intelligence we're talking about here. Think about your driver. They know your kids' exact school routes, your totally predictable office routine, your weekend plans. What about your chef? They know your diet, eating schedules, and even the identities of high-profile guests sitting at your table. Your cleaner? They intimately know exactly where your valuables are, where the hidden cash is, and where you keep sensitive documents. Your nanny knows your kids' deepest habits, their weaknesses, their fears. And your gateman? Well, he controls the ultimate perimeter. He knows exactly when you leave, when you get back, and exactly when the house is most vulnerable. That is a staggering, literally staggering amount of highly sensitive intelligence concentrated right in the hands of everyday staff.
That leads us right into Section 3, the danger of unmanaged pressure and how it acts as the catalyst of risk.
So we really have to ask ourselves, what actually happens when the people holding all this sensitive access are severely underpaid? Well, the reality is this. Poverty does not automatically make a person dishonest, but unmanaged pressure certainly does. And let me be crystal clear here. Having modest means does not mean someone lacks character. Actually, scratch that. It's more like many people of modest means are some of the most fiercely loyal, principled, and trustworthy people you'll ever meet. But overwhelming financial pressure, things like chronic hunger, crushing debt, not being able to feed your own kids or pay rent, that creates critical, undeniable vulnerabilities. It takes a genuinely good person and makes external manipulation dangerously easy.
The hard truth is that external enemies don't need to break down your walls. They literally only need to recruit someone who's already inside. It is wild, right? It's so ironic that someone might drop 50 grand on a state-of-the-art biometric gate, but then pay the guy holding the manual override key bare survival wages. Imagine this terrifying but honestly very real scenario. You've got a gate man making pennies, barely surviving, but he's tasked with guarding hundreds of millions of dollars in assets. Or a driver drowning in debt. When that unmanaged pressure hits a boiling point, these folks are often just one single bad offer, one promise of a massive payout, away from making a highly dangerous decision.
And what happens when they make that bad decision? Let's keep the tension high here, because the reality is grim. The threats created by compromised insiders go way beyond just a few swiped items. We're talking about feeding intelligence to kidnappers, the horrific risk of poisoning, coordinating targeted burglaries where, oops, the alarms are mysteriously turned off, exposing super-sensitive business documents, blackmail, fraud, and leaking your family's routine straight to criminal syndicates. Financial desperation is basically a freshly paved bridge for external manipulation. Let's look at Section 4, when resentment becomes risk, or the slow poison of disrespect.
Okay, so shifting gears from financial pressure to emotional pressure. One of the absolute biggest mistakes households make is viewing domestic staff like mere disposable tools. You know, subjecting them to contempt, constantly shouting at them, denying them proper rest. Look, staff are human beings first. They have families, bills, fears, ambitions, just like us. Households that treat their staff with contempt and constant exhaustion are playing a ridiculously dangerous game. Because poor treatment doesn't always mean they'll just quit on the spot. Instead, it quietly breeds a deeply dangerous, silent resentment. Let's walk through how that resentment actually evolves. because it's a chilling 4-step progression. First, it starts out as silent bitterness. They might still smile, politely open the gate, cook the meals, but internally, deeply bitter. Step 2, over time, that bitterness decays into total indifference. They just stop caring. Step 3, indifference morphs into negligence, leaving doors unlocked, ignoring a tripping alarm, or just not bothering to report something suspicious. And then finally, step 4, in the worst-case scenarios, that negligence escalates into active betrayal. Poor treatment will silently and progressively destroy your security system from the inside out. And the scariest part? Not a single alarm will ever sound.
All right, let's take a breath and move to Section 5, Respect as Security Strategy, which is the new security paradigm. Let's slow things down a bit and completely reframe how we think about running a household. Treating your staff well isn't just about being a nice person. Honestly, it is a hard-nosed, highly effective risk management strategy. Paying fair wages isn't charity, it's risk management. Providing basic welfare, like health coverage or decent time off, isn't a sign of weakness, it is absolute wisdom. And showing respect? That's not a favor, that is leadership. People are vastly more likely to fiercely protect a home that treats them with dignity than one that treats them like they're disposable. By empowering and providing for your staff, you are actually fortifying your home way better than any crazy expensive camera system ever could. So what's the takeaway? The solution to insider risk is not suspicion. You do not need to live in paranoid fear inside your own home. The solution is responsible management that actively reduces that pressure and builds real loyalty. A household can be kind without being careless, You can totally be generous without completely abandoning structure. The goal here is to build healthy systems where accountability is completely normal and expected, rather than just relying on blind trust or living in constant fear. As we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with one final provocative question to think about regarding your own home. Are you building a fortress, or are you building loyalty? Because if you only build the fortress, if you obsess over the locks, the walls, and the cameras, eventually someone on the inside is going to lower the drawbridge. Thank you so much for diving into this incredibly important topic with me. Take this info, rethink your whole approach to household management, and genuinely secure your home from the inside out.
If this message opened your mind, don't keep it to yourself. Subscribe to MasterSense by Faraday, hit the like button, and share this video with someone who needs wisdom, clarity, and inspiration today. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss our next powerful lesson. Remember, knowledge becomes power only when you act on it. See you in the next video.
Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're going to take your entire concept of home security and basically flip it on its head. We're moving way beyond the usual, heavy iron gates and high-tech hardware, and instead we're shining a massive spotlight on the hidden human realities that are operating right inside your own walls. Think about it for a second. Do the thousands, maybe millions, spent on CCTV cameras, armored doors, and imported guard dogs actually make your home impenetrable? We all kind of want to believe they do, right? But the reality? Well, it might just surprise you. So what is the real weakest link? It's definitely not your electric fence. The absolute weakest link in any security setup is the person who already has access, but feels unseen, unpaid, unprotected, or disrespected. I mean, think about it. Your enemies literally don't need to scale a massive wall or hack your cameras if they can just compromise the neglected staff you've already invited into your home. Which brings us to Section 1, the human security gap, moving beyond just walls and locks.
The core idea here is that the family unit is completely intertwined with the household staff. The guard, the nanny, the cleaner. They are all unified inside a single boundary. Your absolute strongest security system? It's not a gadget. It's the human system already operating inside those walls every single day.
So let's get into Section 2, 7 practical steps for households. Let's kick things off with the first 2 steps. Number 1, pay above survival level. Look, if someone has access to your kids, your cars, your most private information, you literally cannot treat their salary as just some minor expense. Paying a good wage actively reduces desperation. And step 2, proper background checks. A polished CV does not equal good character. You actually have to pick up the phone, speak to previous employers, verify addresses. Don't just rely on some casual recommendation from a friend. Putting this into practice means getting into the serious administrative weeds. We're talking about managing vital paperwork, reference letters, address verification checklists, ID cards for everyone from the chef in the kitchen to the security guard at the gate.
Managing household staff properly requires doing the hard work before you ever hand over a set of keys.
All right, moving right along to steps 3 and 4. Step 3 is all about defining duties clearly, simply because confusion creates loopholes. Every single person needs crystal clear boundaries on reporting lines, working hours, and conduct. Step 4, train and supervise. Staff handling sensitive areas, like your kitchen or your children, they need specific training on confidentiality, visitor handling, and emergency responses. You absolutely cannot just assume they'll know what to do when a crisis hits.
Then we have the long-term management side of things. It is absolutely critical to avoid blind dependency. Keeping just one person in a highly sensitive role for years with zero oversight, that is a recipe for unchecked access and unhealthy familiarity. You've got to utilize rotation and leave coverage. And finally, proactively create welfare systems. Helping out with health support, maybe school fees, or giving occasional bonuses, that's not just charity, guys. It builds incredible loyalty and significantly drops their vulnerability to outside manipulation.
That brings us to Section 3, trust versus control, and finding that perfect balance.
We really need to draw a hard line here between blind dependency and structural oversight. Unchecked access leaves you wide open to massive risks. What you need instead are clear systems. I'm talking visitor logs, access controls, inventory checks, maybe periodic camera reviews. These aren't just corporate buzzwords. They are simple reporting structures that fundamentally protect the employer.
But wait, here is the really crucial part of all this. Putting these systems in place, it's not about turning your home into some toxic environment of constant suspicion, not at all. It's about building a fair, disciplined structure. Clear systems don't just protect the household. They actually protect your honest staff from confusion and false accusations. It creates a safe, predictable environment for everyone involved.
Section 4. Prayer requires planning, because God forbid is not a policy.
Now, obviously, faith is incredibly important, and prayer is deeply powerful. Having a spiritual covering absolutely matters. But simply saying God forbid is not a security policy. True wisdom means we combine both sides of that equation. We pray and believe for protection, for sure, but simultaneously, we plan. We implement practical discipline, and we physically close the doors that carelessness leaves wide open.
Which leads us to our final part, Section 5, securing the real gate, the human element. So here is your ultimate checklist to take away from this explainer. Pay with conscience, verify with discipline, lead with respect, pray with faith, and plan with wisdom. This perfectly captures the balance you need between humanity and rigorous security, making sure you never, ever neglect the very people who keep your household safe, day in and day out.
The next time you sit down to review your home security budget, I'm going to challenge you to completely flip your approach. Don't start by looking at upgraded cameras or luxury gates or the new guard dog. Start by asking yourself some uncomfortable but totally necessary questions about your people. Are they properly paid? Are they truly verified, supervised, respected, and supported? Because at the end of the day, a household is really only protected by the loyalty and integrity of the people moving inside those walls.
I want to leave you with this final, lingering thought. Security is not only what we install, it is what we ignore, tolerate, and fail to manage. If this explainer made you even just a little bit uncomfortable today, well, honestly, that was exactly the point. So I'll leave you with this one question to chew on. What human vulnerabilities are you currently tolerating in your own home?